Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Deceived Husbands for more stories.
I took one last serious look around the house to see if there was anything that I wanted or had missed. It became quickly apparent to me that I had not. What I normally took with me on these last-minute, unexpected business trips had been removed just like they would normally. I had told my wife of 15 years that I would once again park my company car at the airport just like I always did in the past. In truth, it was still at the office along with every other item that belonged to them. At the age of 45, having spent 15 years in management, I had just taken early retirement for 2/3 of the level that I would get if I stayed another 4 years. After taking full advantage of my share options, which I sold the very next market day, every year I would get very good performance bonuses. Instead of taking the cash, I had mine deposited by the corporation directly into my company's retirement account. That way, it was never part of my income. The bonus was never taxed, and the full amount went into my retirement. Over the years, that little trick had done quite well. As a result, my monthly retirement check would be a lot more than I currently brought home. My focus on directing my retirement funds investments in tech had paid off quite well. My retirement was now set up to be paid directly into my new account by direct payment. I had set up a new account via the local branch of Wells Fargo for where I was moving to on Friday. I had deposited my last paycheck into it. It was huge because it included my accrued vacation pay. I held the check in hand for the shares that I had sold. $650,000 net after prepaying taxes was a nice nest egg for anyone. The company was thrilled to do it because they could promote someone into my former position for half the pay. I could not afford to deposit that check in the bank until after the end of today, just in case it was found out about. That way, it could not be claimed as part of the marital assets. Those expensive suits I always had to wear, all except for one, were now at Goodwill with everything else I no longer needed or wanted. I was downsizing my life in a wonderful way. What I considered personal items or keepsakes I had packed and loaded. With the difference in tax rate from Texas to where I was going, I was going to end up being way ahead. Plus, the cost of living standards I knew was a lot less. The small U-Haul truck I had rented for a one-way trip had been leased through my parents' family trust in my Uncle Henry's name. It was loosely loaded with all the things I was bringing with me. He had arranged it for me from his end. I had paid the fees in cash to make sure there was nothing here that could be associated with my name. I was leaving the East Coast, going back to my roots in a small town in the middle of nowhere, as my wife would put it. I no longer had to live with the job I had grown to hate over time. That was thanks to my wife, who had made it clear by her recent behavior that my obligation to her was done. I was looking forward to a simple life once again, where your next-door neighbor was a mile or two away and not just 200 yards across the street. I knew full well that my wife had forgotten that I still owned the farm my parents had left for me. Hell, she had hated the place so much she wouldn't even go back for my family's funeral. A car accident had taken them away far too early. As she put it, people like her wouldn't be caught in an uncivilized place like that. It had been that very thought of hers that had convinced me that what I was doing was being done in the right way. Yeah, I had married a stuck-up, self-centered snob who had always believed she was better than anyone else. I thought I had tamed her of her ways as our 2 daughters were growing up. Sadly, I learned the hard way in the last few months that I had not. It had me wondering if I ever truly had known Rachel. Had I, like so many men who came into her life, bought the illusion she created for herself? Did she really know who she really was? It was now obvious that I never had. Thanks to Rachel's own conduct, I had woken up and seen the reality of our relationship in a new light. As a result, I began putting things in order. My desires, wants, and my future had changed as a result. Surprisingly, I was filled for the most part with a feeling of contentment I had not felt in a long time. My freedom from the bondage that my life had become was going to have a hell of a cost on a lot of people. I had left the family estate in my parents' names and had never closed out the family's trust after their death 4 years ago. I don't know why I hadn't done that, but considering what was starting to happen, it was now a major blessing. It could not be considered a marital asset since I had never accepted ownership. The only thing I had done with the farm was rent out the 15 acres of land to some of the local farmers who deposited their rent checks directly into the family trust account. I had left it untouched deliberately. It was building a nice emergency fund when needed, With my knowledge, I could make my living repairing the tractors and heavy equipment instead of supervising the designing and building of them. A family relative was working on getting my parents' old homestead ready. I could stay with them until it was ready for living in again if I had to, so I was not worried about anything. I had called Rachel, my wife, to remind her that I would be leaving on my business trip before she arrived home from hers. I also wanted to verify that she had not changed her airplane schedule. She said she was looking forward to being home after 3 weeks of being forced to live out of a suitcase. I had planned everything down to the minute. My 2 daughters and their husbands would be arriving 2 hours before her arrival home to throw the surprise birthday party. We had conspired together to get it all done. One of my daughters had even invited her mother's boss and his spouse. All it took was me dropping the hint. His wife had said they would gladly come because her husband was always bragging about her accomplishments. This would give her a face to the lady she had heard so much about. None of my daughters knew how big of a surprise it really was going to be. Over 30 family members and friends were looking forward to coming for the potluck supper to help celebrate the wife's belated birthday. We were celebrating it late because her birthday had fallen while she was away with the rest of the management team she told us she had been sent with. It was just one of those important things she could not get out of, Rachel had explained to us all as she prepared to leave. I had known better, but had not said a thing. I had told my daughters that I had videoed my birthday wishes for my wife and put them on a disc. Although I had to fly out, I wanted to be here with them in spirit, so I thought this would be the best way to convey my personal wishes. My only request to my daughters was that they played my recording at the very end, just before the party started to slow down. That way, all would know what my thoughts were concerning their mother. All they had to do was turn the huge patio TV on and hit play for it to start. I left the time to do it up to them. It was time to text my oldest daughter's husband to let him know that I would text him my new number when I arrived at my destination. I also gave him my new email address. We had worked together for a few years. Lucas was one of the newest rising stars with my former employer, and he had met his wife, my eldest daughter, through me. Being an accountant, he had been in on my retirement plans. As far as he knew, I was doing this all because I had found out about my wife and her lover. He had doubts until I showed him the report I got from the investigators. He was one of those who had to see it to be able to believe it types. I had a bit of regret about what was going to happen tonight, partly because he himself would be hit with an eye-opening truth bomb. Lucas did not deserve for it to be revealed like this. The way the truth had to come out had left it impossible to cut out. It was his suggestion that I wipe out all contact information about me online, even going to the point of closing my Facebook page, which I did. When I knew she was on the private plane home, I let her sweat it out not knowing anything. He had said she may be my mother-in-law, but she deserves it after what she did. Let her try to figure it all out. I agreed. Because of our state and its stupid laws, she gets half anyway. The last thing I did was send copies of all our current bank balances and a list of any debts to my lawyer, which were minimal. According to the last property tax, our house was worth about $750,000. With my half share, I could buy a brand new home as good as what I was leaving and furnish it with cash left over. I took my cell phone and dropped it into the small garbage can beneath the kitchen sink. Since I was exiting our home for the last time, I looked around to make sure that nothing I had done would be noticeable to anyone until the party was over. It was sad to be leaving Fairfield, Texas, my home for these last 15 years for the last time. I was headed back home to the plains of Nevada as a nobody, the same way I had left. I honestly had figured out that there were fewer than 10 people outside of the family who would miss me. It was knowing that my video, when shown, was going to alter a lot of people's lives that was the reason I had a big smile on my face. I stopped at the retail cell phone shop of a nationwide company and bought a new cell phone. It took them a few minutes, but the manager was able to get me a local number for the area I was moving to. Once I was back in the truck, I made one phone call. When the female answered, I said, "This is the new number. I'm headed out." She replied, "I got it." I then shut it off to save the mini charge all new cell phones have in case I had an emergency. I was looking forward to the drive east in the middle of September before the weather got too cold. The country would be pleasant to see as it was covered in the rebirth that comes with fall. Rachel and I had met at the Rolling Stones concert back in the day. She was a local girl, a California girl. I was from out of state. We got married a year later on the same day. My parents flew out for the wedding. I was employed in research and development. Rachel was in marketing. We both had been working for the same firms for years. Even at her current age, Rachel was a head-turner. She still captured a room when she walked into it. The years had been kind to her, as her figure pretty much remained the same as it was when we married. She still dressed in class, with clothing that accented her body assets quite well. I couldn't say the same. I had the typical dad's body, pot belly and all. Rachel was looking forward to returning home after being away with her boss and friend with benefits, Mark Reynolds, for the last 3 weeks. She was sorry that her husband, Ethan, had been called away unexpectedly, but that happened a lot with two powerful people who had careers. Being away with Craig had been a much-needed break, but she was looking forward to getting back to her normal routine. Sex every night for 3 weeks was very enjoyable for a short period as it helped to keep one feeling young and appreciated. Yet she preferred making love twice a week with her husband on a regular basis. After their private small jet landed, she cleared the airport and got into her company car heading for home. Once Rachel got home, she was surprised to see the family all there. Both of her daughters and their husbands had made it. Her eldest was now 23 and the youngest a year younger. Over the next few hours, the huge celebration was in full swing. Rachel loved the attention she was being given by family, close friends, and some co-workers. Rachel was surprised that her boss and his wife showed up. After all, he and she had just spent 3 weeks together. When she asked who invited them, her oldest daughter admitted that she had. His wife had said that her boss was always bragging about her, and this was a perfect way to meet her. That comment had made Rachel feel special and proud. Finally, around 8:00 p.m., our daughters each congratulated their mother for reaching another major milestone. Mom, the youngest, said Dad did not want to be left out, so he recorded a special greeting for you. Then they turned the 75-inch plasma screen on and hit the play button on the DVD player. The crowd on the patio got quiet. Everybody heard my voice saying, "Happy birthday, dear." I went on to explain that I was going to highlight a few things from the last year. I highlighted a few humorous things before getting serious, like the birth of our first grandson and the marriage of our last single daughter, our recent anniversary, and our plans for an upcoming second honeymoon. It's been a busy year, I said. I believe that we as a couple were finally heading in a united direction. I was looking forward to doing romantic weekends like we did before the children came along. Then I came home from a trip overseas to find this little gem on our internal security system. It was an eye-opener for me because what I learned that day changed my whole world. I found out that my wife and I had apparently lived our lives with two different realities. The 10-minute clip that started to play was of my wife and daughters talking about having friends with benefits on the side without their spouses knowing. It got very quiet as the clip was revealing their own comments about the time spent with their lovers, who they were, what it was like, what they had done with their lovers, and how each of the others had been protectors when needed by the one. I guess I must have been a bit shocked the first time I saw it because it seemed so unreal to me. For women, talking about their sexual conquests was not normal for me. I'd had to watch it more than once to accept my new reality. It was interesting to hear how easy they thought it was to pull it off behind their spouse's back. Rachel bragged that she was in her third friend with benefits relationship in the last 10 years. She said that each one had brought to her such different and exciting experiences until she was tired of them. She proudly proclaimed she was already shopping around for her fourth. Though not intentional, it was obvious that each of the women's husbands came across as being completely oblivious to how these women really viewed them. Keeping their spouses in line was easy. All they had to do was keep them believing that they were the most important thing in their lives. The details brought up about their playtime, as they called it, was quite revealing to some of their playmate spouses who were also in attendance. For many, this would be a night to remember. I came back on the screen to say, I had to wonder if they knew they were being recorded by our internal security system. If they had, then they had to have deliberately set me up. It had to be the sickest joke pulled on me in my life. If not, it said a lot about their true feeling towards their spouses. Just their words were not enough for me to believe what I had heard. I said, but it did create a bit of doubt. The next clip will show you what I found thanks to the investigators I hired. The second clip was of my wife and her boss' last business trip. It was taken over the first week of their 2-week stay. It caught at all the long hours laying naked on the beach at the only beach that allowed it in Los Angeles, California, the one hotel suite they shared at the Ritz-Carlton. The hotel's registry showing that they registered as Mr. and Mrs., their romantic horse and carriage ride around Central Park as they whispered sweet nothings to each other, those romantic dinners, the night boat ride around the cove, and their day of whale watching. To most who had no clue, it would come across as a couple on their honeymoon. By the time the video was done, everyone knew that I had been played like a fool more than once. The last words I had recorded said it all. I guess this was your birthday present to yourself, my dear. To celebrate your 35th birthday with the newest love of your life had to be thrilling, Rachel. I can't prove you made love with your boss Mark Reynolds every night during your 2-week mini vacation, but more importantly, I can't say you didn't, I said through the video. I do know for a fact that your room only had one double bed. To my 2 sons-in-law, I must ask, do you truly know what your spouses are doing behind your back? As you have just seen, it appears that I didn't. To those who have children, are you sure your children are yours? Are my kids really mine? I said before continuing. How many of these special business trips have you taken, Rachel? Over the years have been nothing but your personal playtime with your conquests? Was I that bad of a lover and husband for all these years? It appears that in your eyes, I must have been by the length of time your special relationships have been going on. In this new reality, I saw just how little I meant to you. If you were that unhappy with our relationship, why didn't you just ask for a divorce? One final question, Rachel. Is the reason you are considered such a valuable employee to Mr. Thompson, your boss, because you willingly spread your legs when he requests you to? I have to ask that because of what we now know what the truth is. Just what is he paying you for? Does he pay you extra to get kinky? Can you tell me just what is the going rate is for a married man to have his own personal hooker at his beck and call? I wish I could be there. I would love to hear Mark Reynolds' own answers to these questions. I believe that his wife, if she was in attendance, would want to hear his answers too. I finished as the video screen went black. The silence on the patio was deafening. No one had a clue what to say or do. My statement had raised a lot of questions and had destroyed the reputation of more than a few. Even in Texas, where there are no real society norms, everybody felt uncomfortable being caught up in what was going on. The police officers here won't even look at thefts under $1,000. That was part of the price we pay to live in Texas. Many would end up having a heated discussion about our situation with their spouses when they got home that night. One thing I knew, for sure, this was one celebration all would remember the rest of their lives. I was later told that my wife, Rachel, and our daughters had tears running down their faces. I wondered if it was because they could see the consequence of their conduct, or was it because they had just been caught? I seriously doubted that any of them had any concerns or thoughts about me at that time. The icing on the cake was when Mark Reynolds' wife, a beautiful woman who was just 37 years old named Emily Thompson, pulled 2 legal envelopes out, serving them both. I heard later that Emily had taken great pleasure in slapping my soon-to-be ex's face while giving her a bunch of not so polite new names. My wife and her latest lover were now being divorced by their respective spouses. Each was now being faced with the consequences of being caught and exposed in such a public manner. One would wonder what they thought about their new reality. Craig was stunned that he had been caught and exposed in front of his wife. There was no way he could ever take what happened back. Both had seen and heard my proof. He had thought his wife had no clue because she had never doubted or questioned anything. That's when he clued into the fact that she was my lawyer. Rachel had caused all of this. He was going to have to fire her if he was going to have any chance to save his marriage. Revealing the difference between my wife and my world had just destroyed 5 marriages. My sons-in-law told their wives not to bother coming home until they were ready to tell the total truth about everything. Even though the younger generation had different views on everything, including morals, principles, and standards, there were just some things that were a bridge too far. But this is Texas, and it's okay. Sadly, it had to take something like this for them to learn it. I drove until I felt tired. I pulled off at a Motel 6 and parked where my truck could be seen from the office. After getting booked in, I went back and got one of my suitcases, taking it and the new cell phone into the room. After a shower, I got ready for bed. Then I got ready to charge the phone. Curiosity caused me to turn it on to see if I had a message from the lady who had my number. I did. The text said, "Home from the party. Call me." Emily, my divorce lawyer, answered before the 3rd ring. "Hi, darling," I said as soon as she answered. "How did your day go?" "Better than we expected." Craig and I drove over to the house together at about 3. There were about 45 there in total. Everybody was in a really good mood. For 5 hours, the party went great. You were right when you said they would not expect a thing, Emily said. Your wife Rachel was thrilled being treated like she was the queen bee. Then, just as things were winding down, your daughters played your recorded video. As a result of what you revealed, I got 3 new clients for the firm. Thanks to you, Emily said as she paused to catch her breath. As soon as the video of your wife and daughters came on, they realized that they had forgotten to turn the internal security system off on that day. It was kind of funny to hear 4 women say, "We are screwed," at the same time. Emily paused to laugh. Everyone was stunned to hear the 4 women openly discuss their friends with benefits relationships behind their spouse's back in such a casual and unconcerned way, Emily said. Then the clip with our spouse's romantic adventure put it over the top. Everyone knew for sure that the first conversation they heard was true. As soon as I served our spouses, as everybody ran for cover, it was like someone yelled fire at your house. Your sons-in-law asked if I was a divorce lawyer. I said yes. That's why I served them both. I got 3 retainer checks on the spot. It now looks like your daughter's playmates' relationships may be headed to divorce too. I drove Craig's company car home and left him there, Emily explained joyfully. Did they try to call me? I asked. After the mad rush to get the hell out of there by most of your friends and extended family, your wife did try to call you. We who were still there watched as she found your ringing cell phone in the garbage. That act of trashing your cell spoke volumes without saying a word. It was like you were telling your family you were done with them all, Emily explained. My husband stood silent, not knowing just what to say as he thought he was being so careful, Emily said. Smiling, I responded, the countdown is on. 6 months from the day we filed our divorces, it can be granted. I can't say I regret finding the conversation on the security systems because without it, I would not have met you. Hopefully, it will go faster than we figure. Maybe they will be willing to resolve it all quickly without a fight. Do you still want everything sold and turned to cash? Emily asked. Yes, unless you can find a way to buy me out. With the exodus of people leaving Texas, that might be a better option for me if that's the way she wants to go, I said. Tomorrow, for her, the panic will set in. You're right. I would love to see her face when she finds out you're no longer with your former employer, Emily said. I will put my law practice up for sale tomorrow. I told my sister and her husband that you're on the way. He's looking forward to meeting you. He still believes it was your influence that got him his tractor dealership a few years back. This new reality that they have created for all of us has consequences that have just begun. I wonder if they still will be laughing about it all when we're done, I replied before saying goodbye. Rachel was standing there holding her husband's cell phone in her hands. She needed to tell him that Mark Reynolds meant nothing to her. She wanted him to know that his 2 daughters were his. Then it finally sunk and he no longer cared what the truth was. This was his way of publicly letting everyone know that he was done with them all. She and her ongoing lies were to blame. She had been so self-centered that she had never thought about the consequences of getting caught. It's hard to admit to oneself that the fun, the excitement, and the sex she had gotten on the side, in the end, was not worth what it was going to cost. From this, there was no going back. Fairfield was still a small town in a lot of ways. They may forgive, but they will never forget. There would always be whispers behind her back. Ethan, with what he had done, had sent a message. He had just written them all out of his life, at least until he got over his anger, though it might take him a while. He always had forgiven her bad conduct in the past. Perhaps he would again. That was when Rachel began to hold on to the belief that in time she would be able to get him to come back. Rachel admitted to herself that she hadn't planned her lifestyle, but had slowly evolved into it over the years. Being progressive-minded, it was normal for her to accept no responsibility and blame someone else. She never could see anything wrong in what she was doing. After all, no one was getting hurt. Having gotten away with it once, she soon found herself in a second. Mark Reynolds was her 3rd friend with benefits relationship. Until today, she had never believed she would be caught. Ethan and she had been so busy with their careers that when they were home, they had always focused on each other and, in their own way, had left the world outside their front door. It had been her own stupidity that tipped him off. Now, because of her conduct, even her daughters were facing divorce. Rachel was having a hard time figuring out why Ethan had done it this way instead of dealing with it privately like he always did. For him, this was so far beyond his character. Was what she had done in his eyes really that bad? After all, it did not hurt anyone. I thought back to when I had discovered the video of my wife and daughters talking about their extra activities 7 months ago. I never thought that it would lead to where I was now. Emily and I had grown up less than 20 miles from each other. But because of our age, we had never met. I was out of high school before she even started. I had booked an appointment with her firm to start looking into the possibility of a divorce. By the luck of the draw, I had got assigned her. After retaining her services, I showed her the video CD. That was when she went into shock. The man my wife was talking about having great sex with, she believed might be her husband. It took her going into her personal Facebook page for me to be able to identify for sure that we were talking about the same man. We both realized that day our marriages were over. We were now bonded together because of our spouse's conduct. We decided that day, after a long conversation about her ethics, to join forces and work together. As we investigated together, our own relationship with each other had grown. At first, we kept our professional relationship just that, but we found ourselves helping each other in the healing process. In a matter of weeks, we had become friends. Unless one has gone through it, you can't even comprehend the betrayal, anger, hurt, and hate you go through. We ended up having a lot of phone conversations, working those emotional things out. That's how our relationship started. Out of our own mutual needs, we found ourselves supporting each other. I don't know how it came out about our roots, but it helped to draw us together even more. We were both kindred spirits because of some of our life experiences. We both had memories of places we both knew. When you both laugh with each other about what you did way back when, it draws you in. Those little things we talked about what we did when we were young lightened our mood at times. Neither one of us was looking, but somehow it happened. It had reached the point last week, after dealing with her daughters, that we were forced to admit to the other we had fallen in love. So far, our relationship had been strictly platonic. We planned to keep it that way until our divorces were granted because we wanted our divorces kept simple. It had been 14 days ago, just after I had said goodbye to Rachel, when Emily called. She had just told her daughters about their father, and they hadn't believed her. I asked her if her oldest daughter was still there with her. She had said yes. I asked her to put her daughter on. I told her daughter that their mother was my lawyer and that I had things I could show them. But because of our legal relationship, their mother couldn't disclose or discuss them. I explained that I had no idea who your mother was when I hired her to handle my divorce. It wasn't until she first viewed what my evidence showed I had that we learned we both had the same problem. I suggested that before they passed judgment upon what they both heard, that they should be open enough to view what I had. Both Emily's daughters showed up at my place about half an hour later. I showed the young ladies the house's security system and how it worked. You could turn the outside off before entering the house, and if you forgot to turn the internal one off, it would automatically record any sound or movement. I had thought they needed to understand how the video itself was created before showing what was recorded. I then had Sarah and Mia watch the discussion between my wife and our daughters. They were shocked. The fact that my wife was discussing intimate details about her sex life with their father had to be disturbing. This is what your mother saw after I hired her. She, because of her ethics, could not disclose to you how she knew. I explained. As we speak right now, your father and my wife are in Los Angeles, California on their semi-annual phony business trip. I have investigators getting both your mother and me further proof. When Rachel, my wife, returns, she will be served with the petition for divorce. It ended up that I had a long talk with the two young girls about vows and what they mean. I brought out the point that forgiveness was easy. The problem for all concerned will be getting over the issue of trust. My daughters, I said, have learned that there are no consequences for the long-term bad conduct of their mother. She is teaching them to do the same thing. I don't know if they have or haven't. That will be for others to sort out. As you heard, Rachel said she has been doing this for years. I don't blame your father as much, but in the eyes of your mother, he has just as much guilt. Anyone in your mother and my situation must ask themselves, were our spouses lying when they said their marriage vows to us years ago? I explained. It's forced us to look back on our whole marriage with a different understanding. Things now appear to be a lot different than we thought, I explained. We were just blind by life to see. Looking at what we have found out in these new eyes, it appears that they were both your mother and I. Because of their conduct, we have had our whole existence torn apart. If it was not for our children, everything we knew about our life comes across as if it was nothing but a bunch of lies, I pointed out. I was shocked when Mia, Emily's youngest, said, "I see both my mothers and your situation has more problems than what we have discussed. If they had any respect for either one of you at all, it should have stopped them from doing it in the first place." I had never thought about that, and I told her so. I said that I was surprised to see such insight coming from one so young. As soon as they left, I phoned Emily to inform her how it went. I said I hoped it helped. It did, as I later found out. Emily told me her daughters found me easy to talk to. "Mom," Sarah said, "his manner is much like your father's. He listens, then pauses before he speaks, and when he does, you can see his insights coming out. Like Grandpa, he tries to bring out what he has to say in ways that make it easy for us to comprehend. He doesn't try to complicate things and makes the complicated seem simple. That's because, like me, he's from back home," Emily explained. "There is still a lot of country in that man. He's decided to move back to restore his father's home and enjoy life instead of being caught up in this one anymore. Here, everything is the rat race. It's always go, go, go. Ethan is finally realizing, like me, the quality of the life we left behind as we grew up, and we both want that kind of life back. As he says that he's done keeping up with the Joneses. He's going back to a simpler way of life." At 6:00 the next morning, I was on my way. I got back on Interstate 70 East. By tonight, I hope to be out of Pennsylvania into the northern part of Ohio near the Indiana border. I was taking my time to take in some of the sights I had longed to see. Surprisingly, all things considered, I was at peace. That night, after checking into a suite, I checked my new email account. I had a message to call my oldest son-in-law. Thankfully, he had provided his phone number. "Hi, Lucas," I said first thing. "Son, glad you called," he said. "I've got a lot to tell you. But first, where in the hell are you?" "I'm on the road, licking my wounds," I said with a serious chuckle. "It'll convey those words to the person who asked me to ask if I heard from you," Lucas said. "It has been a crazy day. Rachel showed up at the office first thing this morning, demanding to know where you had been sent to. She had decided to catch a plane and fly out to work things out with you. She still thought she could save the relationship," he said before continuing. "When she was told you had retired, she asked for confirmation, so I got called to come down and talk to her. I told her you had taken early retirement and were in the process of moving. She had to ask where. I said I did not know. She called me a liar, saying you know where the retirement checks will be sent to or can find out. She said if I released that information, I could be fired. It went downhill from there. I had to have security escort her out, he informed me. I shouldn't have laughed, but I did. Oh, it gets better, Ethan? Mia called and said that her mom got fired right after Mark Reynolds got served with your $4 million alienation of affection suit from some lawyer in Miami. She had to call a taxi to get home. Rachel went to a labor lawyer and gave him another one to deal with. Somehow they got him served about 4:00 this afternoon," Lucas explained. "Mia wants to come home and see our son. I told her we're doing nothing until I had confirmed my son is mine, and if she doesn't like that, she can take me to court. Mia claims she hasn't slept with anyone since we were married. I responded that is not what your own words claim in the recorded chat. Well, at least they're not bothering me about it," I said with a chuckle. "I'm taking the time to see some of the sights I have wanted to see. This mini vacation is turning out to be the best thing I have done in a while. The question is, are you really going to divorce her?" The youngest was able to get their clothing and, for now, has moved in with Rachel, Lucas said. "My wife is staying there too. All are finding no one wants anything to do with them right now. Everyone's too raw to think straight. As for divorce, it boils down to what the DNA proves. If he's not my son, there's no reason for us to stay together. Right now, it appears that, like you, I got sold a package of goods based on what she felt I needed to see to be reeled in like a fish on a line. I have had about 6 months to work out my feelings. Believe me, it takes about that long to figure things out that you can live with. So give it time and don't rush into anything," I said. "Time has allowed me to get on with my life and given me the chance to restart my life. It's now headed in a new direction, and I'm actually excited about it." "So you're not coming back," Lucas said. "Only if one of my lawyers needs me for court," I said. The place I am moving to, because of the tax difference and the cost of living difference, I will be way ahead financially. Besides, the CEO wants me to work as an advisor from time to time. I can do that from my new home with a secured line and my computer, so he'll never be truly out of it, I told him. I was willing as long as I didn't have to wear a monkey suit or a tie. Well, Ethan, they're already saying that they wish you were here, Lucas said. I learned that most would throw their ideas at you, and you would point out what would be good about it and what could be wrong. Is this your new cell phone number? Yes, it is, but for now, keep it to yourself, I said. Last thought, the next time you talk to Rachel and she asks about me, tell her I said she can always go back to one of her other friends for benefits. After all, they all had accepted her used goods before. If she argues about it, just say, well, for the last 10 years, you have proven he was nothing but your backup plan. I didn't know it, but Lucas had recorded our conversation and sent it on to my wife and daughters. I would learn later that Rachel had not been impressed. She thought I had no right to advise my son-in-law on anything. After all, I was just a man. My daughters were beginning to realize the cost of their following their mother's lifestyle choices. Each of their husbands wanted as little contact with them as possible. They were beginning to turn on their mother. The next call was to Emily, who was excited to hear from me. She and her staff had been swamped with another 5 wrong parties because of my wife's surprise birthday party. It seems that because of what happened, 1 or 2 of Rachel's former partners have been discovered. She knew about Rachel's termination and said it was an attempt by Craig to try to get her interested in reconciliation, but she wasn't going there. He doesn't realize it, but the board of directors of his company had already talked to her this evening explaining everything. Rachel would be hired back and elevated in her position, and he would be demoted for using company assets for personal reasons. She was just that good at what she did, Emily said. Laura had broken the news to her daughters that she was moving back to Nevada after her divorce was final, that if they wanted to stay in Texas, they would have to find their own place to live or move in with their dad. Emily said, I've reached the age where I want a simpler life. Mia asked, is it because you have fallen in love with Ethan? Emily said, I told her that I had, but neither of us had acted upon it. I had to explain to her how it had happened. I had to tell them our whole story from beginning to now. Mia said, I hope it makes you feel young again. Emily had said, it did. Then she told her daughters that they were both wanted in her life and were welcome to come with her when she moved back to be with me and her family. Emily said, I told them that you were old enough to decide for yourself what kind of person you will be and what kind of life you want. Learn from what I am dealing with. That's when it hit me, the odds of Rachel ever finding another man like me again because of the public nature of our breakup was highly unlikely. As long as she remained in the area, anyone who knew of the situation would pass on her because of her history before they got serious. Her own conduct had ruined forever the chance to have an honest, loving relationship with any man. I wondered how long it would take for her to have that reality sink in. It was about lunchtime when I pulled into my hometown. I had taken over 3 days to get here. I found a Monpa diner and had gone in to eat lunch before heading out to the farm. During my last week at work, I had arranged for the electrical to be hooked up. I was waiting for my burger and fries, drinking a coffee. Son of a gun, is that you, Ethan Davis? The farmer said as he walked in and sat his big bum down at my booth. It's good to see you, son. You're looking good. Uncle David, where's the wife of yours? I responded with a smile. She and our daughter are out at the house getting it ready. I had to go over and solve some minor plumbing problems. The house is basically movie and ready. They cleaned up the house, got the refrigerator repaired and working, replaced the fuses on the old stove. You will most likely want to update and modernize, Uncle David said. We now live in town as David and his wife have taken over the farm. Order some food on me, and we will get caught up on things, I said. It was nice to be back with my family. Before heading out to my childhood home, I stopped at the local grocery store and started picking up the basics. It was surprising to see how much cheaper food prices in general were here. They were not taxed to death, and the price of things reflected that. I had filled 2 carts up by the time I got to the checkout. The cashier and I had gone to school together, so we got caught up a bit as she ran me through. When I got to my family home, I was surprised how good it really looked from the outside. It had been a long time since I had lived in a completely brick home. My aunt and cousins came out to greet me. Then they helped me bring in the groceries. As soon as we put them away, the coffee pot was turned on. After they left, I took a close look at the house. Uncle David was right. I would have to have some major updating done. I called him to get a couple of names of good construction crews that he would use. He did better than that. 2 hours later, he brought them to the house. It gave me time to unpack some of my stuff. After going through it from head to toe, we decided that it would cost less to build a brand new house. The old house would have to be stripped to the bones. All the electrical wiring would have to be replaced because they were so old. The lead pipes, once standard because of what they were made of, had to go. The barn was still in good shape. With a new roof and a few boards replaced and a paint job, it would be as good as new. The only major thing I would have to do was electrical. The stalls would be taken out, so I could use it as my shop when I worked on tractors and heavy equipment repairs. I called Emily that night and told her what I had learned. We decided we wanted a one-floor house with a small cold cellar for storage built on a 4-foot crawl space that would be completely double insulated for the cold winters. I had to promise to go to her brother-in-law's dealership to introduce myself the next day. I called the contractor and told him what I wanted. He said he had a few samples of plans that he would bring over for me to look at after work. I drove the truck rental back to the nearest rental shop. They gladly drove me to the nearest car dealership. I bought a nice, slightly used Ford truck that had almost no mileage, got it transferred and insured before returning the rental. I had hit the bank and made a deposit, picked up a few blank checks, and ordered some. The 1.45 difference a gallon for gas shocked me. Here it was a lot less. I then drove over to introduce myself to Emily's older brother. It turned out I'd gone to high school with him. He offered me a job right on the spot. I could start when I was ready. That was when I told him of my plans and the relationship I had with the corporation going forward. He had to do a little teasing about his sisters and my relationship. He told me he had never really understood his sister's first husband. He wasn't alone with that thought. Neither did I. The contractor and I worked out a price for the building of a 4-bedroom home with an extra-large 2-car garage to be built behind the old house and decided to put in the new septic system. Gas for heat, water, and cooking with a large gas generator for electricity when needed. It would have an open floor plan with a laundry mudroom at the back, which would have a door to the big garage. The entry to the cold cellar and the furnace room would be off the side of the garage, going down beneath the house. The 4-foot crawl space would be double insulated, including underneath the main floor. Access to it would be from the furnace room. It was nice to know that what I should get out of the divorce would more than cover the cost. I had just finished talking to Emily, letting her know that I touched base with her brother and that I had signed the contract for the building of the new house, when Lucas called. "Rachel has hired a private firm to find you, Ethan," Lucas said. "She still believes you two can work it out." "There's nothing to work out. There is nothing left that I want. If we got back together, she'd just do the same again in a different way," I said. It's sad that someone so intelligent is incapable of seeing that simple truth. No wonder this country is so screwed up. I was surprised because Lucas got very quiet. I had to ask if he was still there. "Yeah, I am," he said. "It's just that your statement has made me look at things with a different view. Your statement is so simple that it is so profound. We have a lot of so-called brilliant people who can't see a simple truth. That's why we have so many problems in our government. They focus on what is in front of them. Being so intelligent, they cannot see what created the problem in the first place. The result is that whatever they do, it makes it worse, and it's always the other guy's fault." "Lucas, your mother-in-law will never see what she did as the problem," I explained. "I am the problem because of the way I am looking at it. My views are too old-fashioned for her to comprehend or understand. I'm not a progressive and not keeping up to date with what's now considered acceptable to them, and that's my fault." The night before my new home was to start being built, I was at the house packing my things into the barn. They had taken out all the stalls. We were putting in the electrical lighting and 110 plugs for my power tools. I was expecting to use the barn as my shop. Lucas called again to let me know he had just found out that Rachel's PI had located me. I was seen by a local relative when they were in the same grocery store where I had first shopped. She had called "Lucas," I said, "do me a favor. If Rachel calls, tell her that I have been seen buying milk, eggs, bacon, butter, and flour at the local grocery store. Then inform her that if she shows up, she will be going home to Texas all by herself. I will not even see her or talk to her. If that gets her off her ass, more power to you." The next day I got a call from Emily saying, "I will be at the apartment in 2 days. How do I get from the airport to the house?" The next morning, I drove out to the county airport. They had only one runway with about a dozen small planes. At the same time, I realized that I would need to buy a place in town for her to set up her new practice. The problem was we both would want to keep our relationship private until we got our divorces done. There was no way to avoid the gossip here in our community because Emily and I were now too well known. It turned out that one of Emily's new clients had rented out her brother's old house for the last 6 years, and it was now vacant. I would buy it from her and allow Emily to live there until our divorces were granted. Once done, we would set up the office. That was a perfect solution for us all. On the day Emily was to arrive, I was there at the airport before her plane landed. I was looking forward to seeing her. I had just gotten the keys to the house I was buying. When Emily's plane landed, she quickly got out and ran into my arms. "I have missed you so much," Emily said as I held her tight. "It's good to see you, my darling," I replied. We spent the next 3 days together. I had taken the time to show her around. We even drove to her sister's to meet her family. Emily and her brother had a good talk while I got caught up with her sister-in-law. They all thought that the way Emily and I had gotten together was unusual. In a lot of ways, it was quite romantic. Her sister-in-law told me a few secrets about my new love. I was not surprised by what I learned, and it filled in a lot of blanks. We had to take our time to keep our emotions in check because of our divorces. Emily was not just beautiful, she had a high IQ that was higher than mine. It was a humbling experience for me to find a lady who was interested in me for who I am, not for what she could get. The biggest thing I learned from her was that we shared common values. It had been a few weeks since I had spoken to my daughters, so I decided to give them a call. I was curious how they were doing since the bomb had dropped. It would have been a huge wake-up call for them all. My eldest answered on the third ring. "Hi, Dad," Lily said. "Hi, Lily. How are you doing?" I asked. "Life is now busy but good," Lily said. "It has not been easy trying to get through it all. It seems you were the glue that held everything together. We are sorry, Lucas, and I want to apologize to you. Our mother told us you had discovered her having an affair, but we didn't believe her. For that, we are truly sorry." "Well, you had no reason to," I replied. "The truth is hard for us to comprehend. Mom would be out of the picture until this mess is cleaned up. I can't believe that in the back of my mind, I knew she was lying about her trips, but I never thought she would go that far. It had to be a lot worse for you. I guess it says a lot about all of us. You were the victim of her game. Why did you feel you had to make it so public?" "I'm sorry you feel that way, Lily," I said. "I didn't do it to hurt you or your sister. But you have to remember that your mother is a master at deceit. Look what she did to me. There is no other way she could see the truth. I was going to end up as another victim if I didn't. You have to learn to live with the consequences of your actions. Your mother and I never agreed on anything, but she made sure I paid for the sins I didn't commit. She destroyed my faith in her, and she did the same to you. Your mother and her own sisters will lie to cover it up. That's why I did it." "Did you have to destroy our lives?" Lily asked. "You and Mom both took it out on us. We never had any idea what you were doing. You have to know that. The truth is that she could have ended it all before the bomb dropped, but she didn't. She just continued to lie. That was my reality," I said. "She made it that way. I never had a choice in what she did to me. Now you know what it is like to be the victim." "Dad, you could have handled it better," Lily said. "You were just as bad as Mom." "Lily, you're right. I could have. But would I have had the guts to do what was needed? She didn't care. Your mom knew what she was doing was wrong. I have spent 15 years married to her. And the truth is that your mother never loved me. I just found out what a fool I was. Your mother has a heart of stone. She did this to us. You have to know that," I explained. "The only reason you are here is because she is lying to you. You and your sister are too young to understand, but now you know what it is like to be betrayed. I've had to deal with this for a long time. I am sorry you have to pay for her mistakes." "Why did you do this to us?" Lily asked. "You should have just divorced her. It was a hard decision. I had to take action to protect you and your sister. I could not let her destroy us." "She destroyed us," I said. "I had no choice." "Dad, you didn't have to do it," Lily said. "You could have just divorced her." "No, I couldn't. You have to know that," I explained. "Your mom was a master at deceit. She would have destroyed me in the process. She did everything to make sure she would come out ahead. I was going to end up as another victim. I had to protect you and your sister. I couldn't let her destroy us. I had to protect you. Dad, I understand. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I am sorry for what she did to you. I hope you can find some peace. I love you, Lily said. I love you too, Lily. Take care, I said before hanging up. Emily and I were together at last. We had finally found each other. We had both been through so much, but we were stronger because of it. Our love was real, and it was worth fighting for. We were going to build a new life together. It was time to move on from the past and focus on the future. We were ready for whatever life had in store for us. Together, we could overcome anything. Our love was unbreakable. Thank you for watching this video. We just explored a story of betrayal, transformation, and new beginnings. What are your thoughts on how Ethan handled the shocking truth about his wife? Would you have done anything differently in his place? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories.